That was his thing. And I put it in capital letters. Learn these five principles and teach them. That's really what he said we could do.
I was thinking
And
about
those
teaching
are
them
all
in our
here?
family. I mean, it's teaching them wherever. It's teaching them everywhere.
Yes.
In whatever sphere of
And
influence,
sharing-
however we can.
Sharing them wherever
Living
they're
them.
applicable.
My brain was just going and going and going while you were talking, Karen, trying to figure out what I still want you all to teach me about this, because there's something that doesn't feel like it's connecting about the role of government and family and how it all fits. And what you said enlightened a lot, but I don't think it's all clicking quite yet, because
My notes are not complete, that's for sure. He
I
said
have-
a lot.
I've wondered about that a lot, because about what the government's role, I mean, the government should stay out of family. Well, what does that mean? You know, does that,
Yes.
what does that even mean? Because the government's already in family to a degree when we get married. It's a civil thing. I mean, we're legally married, and so the government's already in family. What?
But is that a proper role of government? To be in marriage?
So,
To need a marriage license, I guess.
so is the proper role of government in family then? To, like, how is government staying out of family and letting us be free, and at the same time protecting our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, our property, our right of conscience is the big issue that we're talking about here. How are they staying out of our choices and protecting our liberties in the family? What should the government do that's that?
Well, it goes back to the 5 principles that he gave, which are, the first ones are that that our rights come from God. They don't come from the government. So the only way the government can protect our rights is to protect our God-given rights. And that means, going back to Bastiat, we can only give to the government, we can only authorize the government to do things that we can do for ourselves. So, I had a good friend a long time ago put this license thing in my head. Where are licenses a proper role of government? Who is the government to tell us who knows something and is qualified to act in a service and who is not? And I wonder, what's the point of a marriage license? I mean, what's the point of government being in marriage at all? Is there a role that you can see that is
Well,
a proper role of government?
I know part of the problem in Africa with building their society is that they don't have a good system of recording land and deeds. That they can be, say a farmer has a piece of land, there's no good system for selling that land to somebody else and have it be their land with nobody else coming and taking over it.
Okay.
So our government has traditionally provided
Records.
a lot of that service, records,
Okay.
but it doesn't have to. Like when you buy a property, that's when you go to the deed office, that's not a government office, right? When you go to
The title company and
a title company and all that?
The title company takes care of recording it with the county on your behalf.
Right.
The title is a government document, is it not?
Well, I think one aspect is that the Constitution required that a census be taken. And the census is establishing the number of people,
Right.
but it also looked at the families. There's some laws of inheritance, I suppose. So it's appropriate for the government to keep track of the names of individuals, the heads of people.
Okay.
But
And that makes sense because that's a moral and natural law
Mhm.
that families would inherit.
That's protecting property rights.
Yeah, yeah. So records does make sense to me. And I guess a marriage license is just an official way to do that, to record a marriage. So that makes sense.
Well, the licenses that are necessary probably don't have to cost as much as they do, but that's beside the point. That's interesting. That helps.
Thank you. That
And
records, that's really good.
what you said, Karen, too, was that it's unalienable rights that don't come from the government. And so then I thought,
Right.
if they're moral right, if they're natural law rights from God, then He does give that right to marry, and God has not given the right to marry people of the same gender. And so when the government, because to me, I've never quite understood where is it force and where is it free will in the government and what they're saying about the family. But what you're saying is the government cannot give the right for homosexual marriage because it's not a right that we have individually because God didn't give us that right.
That's right.
That's out of harmony with God's principles.
God's
so-
law is to create families. So the government can't go and say, okay, this is a family. Well, that's not natural law.
You can say that, but
is
it's not true. It's
Exactly.
not a family.
That's not the definition of family.
What's the difference between a right and a freedom? That's Hannah.
Yeah, I heard.
Hi, Deanna.
I heard it beep again.
Did it go off?
So it's like, give me
she
the
wants to
five, all right?
participate.
Oh, good, good.
Number one
I
is
put